Hello again, everybody. It's the Reverend J. Goldstein, and welcome to another episode of Doodling with Reverend J. Today's episode, we're going to be drawing a flower. Now, if you remember in the last episode where we drew a brick wall, I drew a little flower and made the offhand comment that anyone can draw a flower, or that you already knew how to draw one. Then I realized, what if you don't? So let's fix that and draw a flower. Now when I draw a flower, I like to start on the head of the flower and work my way down. So let's do that. First, let's make the center part of the flower. Now if you want to make a very good circle, the way to do it, other than practice, is to make a half circle on one side and then connect it with a half circle on the other. Although counterintuitive, this works because you have more control bringing the pen towards you than pushing the pen away from you. Now let's make some petals, because a flower needs petals. And you can make these as large or as small as you like. But whichever size you pick for the first one, you should probably be consistent all around the flower. I've made a big one, so that we can make this video a little bit shorter. Now the first petals you draw will be the petals on the front of the flower, the petals you see closest to you. I'm going to make 3 of those. Now like I said, you can make these petals any size you want. You can make tons and tons of skinny ones. Or maybe you have a way of making one large petal around the whole flower. If you do, send a picture of it to me. I'd like to see that. Next, we're making the secondary and third rows, etc. by coming between the petals we already drew and make little half petals. You can do it on either side, left or right, and it doesn't have to be a half. It could be 3/4 or 9/10 of a petal. The idea is that you draw the petal up and over and let it get cut off by one of the front petals. When you've run out of room for doing this, the next thing you're going to want to do is make the last row of petals. The way we'll do that is by simply making little curves over the spaces that we have left over. Next, we're going to need a stem for the flower. And since this is a pretty big, heavy-looking flower, we'll make the stem come out of the side as if the head of the flower is pulling it down. And we'll pick a point, and we'll just make a kind of generally up and down curved line like that bends to the right. Then we'll move a little bit to the left of that line and follow it down pretty much as best as we can without making it too uneven, and have it bend to the left. Now we can put a little bit of details into our flower. Maybe we want some shading. To give it some dimension, make some lines to make a little shade, and make sure that the space you leave over makes a curve, so that the lines end leaving a curve like that. That way it'll look more round. And you can do the same kind of general shading on all of the petals. And depending on which part of the flower the petal's on, depends on where you're going to put that shading. So as usual, I've put the light source to the right of the picture. And you can see that the parts farther away from the light source, the parts on the left, are the parts that get shadowed. And we're trying to infer the shape of the flower by how far the shadowing goes. For instance, we want to make this look as though it bends a little bit. So it bends away from the light. We put shadow on the part that bends away from the light, and it looks bent. Like I've said before, I'm not particularly good at this, but I'll share what it is that I know. Next, we're going to put a little bit of detail on the stem. If you want to infer a shadow here, you can just make a second line on the left side, or even make little hash marks. You'll find what works best for you. And all this flower needs are a couple of leaves. What I like to do is just kind of make a line that curves like a big flattened out S with a point on the top. So that's your S, and then it makes a point. It goes kind of the other way. And you complete the leaf by making a curved line that meets at the end. Putting a line down the center of it, whether it be curved or straight, up to you. And then repeating the process for every leaf you want to make. Make that flattened out S with a little point. Make that curved line that comes up and meets it at the end. And then put a little line down the middle. And you have a leaf. And again, do a little bit of shadowing. A little bit of shading, hash marking. It's called a lot of different things. I'm going to put a little bit of shadowing here that I didn't see before. So kind of come back to that spot. And if I had more time or talent, this would look a lot better. Because it's a little bitty flower, the grass I put at the bottom will be a little bit larger this time. And something I haven't been pointing out about drawing grass at the base of things is it's nice to make it a little higher in the middle and then a little bit lower on the ends. And that gives the impression of depth because the part closest to the picture looks like it's closest to you because that's where the most detail is. So we have a flower, and I hope you enjoyed that. If you did, please hit the like button, share, subscribe, come back to the next time. It's a Reverend J. Goldstein. Ta-da!